Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar. My name is Alex Barjaki, and I'm a Senior Research Director here at Edison Research. I'm also joined today by my colleague, Salma Ali, an Associate Research Director at Edison Research.
Hi, Alex. I'm so happy to join you, and I'm excited to deep dive into all things TikTok. I'm going to give you guys my TikTok break, but there's no dancing involved. I promise that. So we're just going to have good, confident data points. And before we get started, I'd love to open the chat to everyone to have people share what's on their current For You page. So I'll go first. My current For You page is Mom Talk Drama, Christmas gift guides. And somehow I got sucked into these Appalachian ghost stories because of my coworker Karina, but I need to get off it because they're really scary. So it's just not for me.
Yeah, Salma, get out of there. That sounds terrible. My For You page is also a lot of mom talk drama mixed with some football recaps, go birds, and a lot of makeup tutorials. Some might say that we have quite the range of interests.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Now that we've shared those important findings, let's kick off Edison's latest webinar. And we'd like to share with you the Infinite Scroll, a TikTok report. This report uses never before seen data all about how Americans engage with and view TikTok. It's one of the most well-known and popular social media platforms. If you have any questions during our webinar today, feel free to post them there in the Q&A function or the chat. We have folks in Edison Research who are standing by to answer any of the questions that you might have, again, in that Q&A function. Selma and I are going to turn off our cameras now to have you focus completely on our awesome data, and let's get into it. Some of you might be curious today on how this research came about. We're going to review findings from one of our annual Infinite Dial studies. For those of you who don't know, Edison Research's Infinite Dial study is the longest running survey of digital media behavior in America. It's pretty iconic. It covers a wide range of topics from mobile behaviors, internet audio usage and listening, podcast consumption, and America's usage of social media.
According to the 2025 Infinite Dial, 86% of Americans 12 plus currently use social media, which equates to an estimated 248 million people. TikTok is the third most well-known social media brand among Americans 12 plus. And as of the 2025 Infinite Dial, 90% are aware of TikTok, only slightly below other hugely popular brands like Facebook and Instagram.
So we know that TikTok is a widely popular social media platform. We also know that the platform has had no shortage of controversies and news coverage. There seems to be a lot of passion and interest in TikTok, but that's met with an equal amount of concerns and questions. Here at Edison Research and SSRS, we don't like to just think and hypothesize. We like to have actual data to back up our insights, recommendations, and claims about how people engage with and perceive media sources and platforms. So, of course, we fielded a survey and crafted this specific report.
We fielded an online survey of over 2,200 Americans 13 plus. The survey was fielded from October 3rd to the 29th, and we wanted to make sure we were presenting data that was representative of the overall population, so we waited to match the gender, age, and geography of the US 13 plus population. We also asked a range of questions all focused on TikTok, from how often people are using the app to how they feel when scrolling and if they've ever tried to reduce or stop their usage.
We have a number of interesting findings and data points to share with you today. But we wanted to take a moment first to spotlight a couple that we think are very important. First and foremost, perceptions of TikTok are very positive. The overwhelming majority of weekly TikTok users say they feel entertained when using the app. We also found that many agree that TikTok brings people together and that it helps them escape the stress of everyday life.
The data also shows that TikTok is an important platform for audio content discovery. Many weekly users are on TikTok to find new music, podcasts, and audiobooks. It's clear from our research that if you're trying to engage with new audiences, a TikTok presence and strategy is necessary. While weekly users are enthusiastic about TikTok, there's a sizable percentage who are concerned with how much they spend using the platform. especially users who are between the ages of 13 and 24, one of TikTok's most active audiences.
Finally, TikTok is a powerful platform for promoting products or services since a vast majority of weekly users recall advertisements they see on TikTok. Over 3/4 of weekly users remember ever seeing or hearing an advertisement for a product or service while scrolling through the app. So let's finally get into all of the interesting data and insights we've been teasing you with. First, let's start by reviewing the simple question of how often are Americans 13 plus using TikTok? Out of the entire 13 plus population, 29% say they access the app daily, followed by an additional 10% who say once or twice a week. We have the lightest users who say they access TikTok once or twice a month at 8%, followed by the non-users at 53%. It's important to note that just because someone selected never here does not mean that they did not use TikTok at one point. With this question, though, we are focused on current engagement. So overall, 47% of Americans 13 plus ever use TikTok, which is impressive on its own.
An impressive but probably not surprising way to look at this data is by different audience segments. We know from the infinite dial that social media itself is popular and is used by the vast majority of Americans, but we also know that the different audience segments are more invested and dedicated users, and TikTok is no exception.
When we compare how men and women answered this TikTok usage question, we see that women are more likely to be avid TikTok users than men. 1/3 of women use the platform daily, compared to 26% of men. A similar percentage of men and women access the app once or twice a week and a month. We see a bigger difference when we look at the percent who say never. 55% of men 13 plus versus 50% of women 13 plus.
Another story, but this one is probably not very surprising, is how different age segments vary in terms of their TikTok usage frequency. No surprise, I'm sure, but younger Americans, those between 13 to 24, are the most likely to be dedicated users, with over one half saying they use it daily, significantly higher than those 25 to 44, and especially those 45 plus, where only 12% use TikTok daily. And there's also interesting differences when we compare how often different ethnicity segments visit TikTok. Just under 1/4 of white Americans visit the platform daily. This jumps significantly to 37% among Black or African Americans, and even higher among Hispanics, with 50% using it daily. And it's important to note here that the American Hispanic population is very young, and as we saw previously, younger Americans are more likely to be dedicated to TikTok. So that's partly why that number is higher here.
Our previous slide showed how often the total US 13 plus population uses TikTok, and then we focused on specific audience segments to illustrate significant changes. We really wanted to use this research as an opportunity to dig into habits and perceptions of people who are familiar and engaged with the platform. So for the remainder of the report, we're going to focus exclusively on avid TikTok users, those who are on the platform at least weekly. So 39% of Americans 13 plus, which equates to approximately 112 million people. So who are these weekly TikTok users, and how might they be different from the broader US 13 plus population? This top horizontal bar shows the gender and age breakdown for the total 13 plus population. Just below that, you will find the same composition breakdown, but this time among weekly TikTok users 13 plus. Focusing first on gender, we see that our weekly TikTok audience skews slightly more female at 53%. Looking to the right is where we find pretty drastic changes. Again, the top shows the age composition for the total population, and then on the bottom, the age composition for weekly TikTok users. For that bottom bar, we see significantly larger slices of light green, ages 13 to 24, and yellow, ages 25 to 44. Among weekly TikTok users, 34% are 13 to 24, and 43% are between the ages of 25 and 44. meaning that 3/4 of weekly TikTok users are under 45, significantly younger than the broader US 13 plus population.
Again, we're looking at audience composition, but this time for ethnicity. 68% of the total 13 plus population identifies as white. This drops down to 54% of weekly TikTok users. Instead, weekly TikTok users are also more likely to identify as African American or Black and Hispanic or Latino than the overall US population. Not only are TikTok users more likely to be younger, but they're more likely to be diverse as well. Now that we've described who this weekly audience is, let's get into how they feel about using TikTok. You can pretty much find a TikTok video about anything these days, so we wanted to understand the diverse range of emotions weekly users feel when scrolling through the platform. We wanted to capture both positive and negative sides of the spectrum. And it's clear from this slide that TikTok succeeds at bringing the entertainment to users, with 75% of weekly users saying they feel entertained when on TikTok. Far behind that, but still high on the list, we find a number of other positive adjectives. 48% say they feel happy, followed by 41% who say they feel relaxed. We also know from other research that TikTok is used for news and information. That's also represented here, with 39% saying they feel informed.
We'll get more into this theme in upcoming slides, but TikTok is a place for connecting with others. 36% of weekly TikTok users feel connected when using the app. Another theme we'll explore in more detail in future slides is TikTok addiction. Ask anyone who is on the platform and they will tell you how they can get sucked into an endless loop of swiping and scrolling on the platform. 18% of weekly users say they feel addicted when using TikTok. Similarly, small percentages of weekly users say they feel stressed and angry when on TikTok. This is not to discount these emotions or the negative effects TikTok can have on users' mental health, but this is to show that people who use the platform weekly feel very positive about it.
Entertainment plays a big role in why people turn to TikTok. It's the highest adjective on this list, but it also links to another important theme in this presentation: TikTok as a form of escapism. 87% of weekly TikTok users say the platform helps them escape the stress of everyday life. Instead of adding to feelings of stress and anxiety, weekly users feel like the app is a place where they can go to find some form of stress relief.
Connection is also a theme we want to spend time on and explore as it relates to how people use TikTok. It falls in the middle of our adjective list, but again, we see a very high percentage of weekly users who believe it brings people together rather than push them apart. The platform and its powerful algorithm excel at serving people content and creators that are similar to their likes and interests. Digital communities like Book Talk, Movie Talk, and our personal favorite, Mom Talk, have all started on TikTok, but have had massive ripple effects in our society. Now, we just spent time reviewing the data among all weekly TikTok users. Let's take some time to see how different audience segments feel while on the platform. Entertained is a pretty consistent theme we see across audiences, especially between men and women. 75% of each segment say they feel entertained when on TikTok.
Entertain remains the most popular adjective among different ethnicity segments, but we did notice that African Americans or Black weekly users are less likely to select the adjective compared to white and Latino or Hispanic weekly users.
We see a similar story by age as well. Again, it remains the most popular feeling when on the platform. Our youngest age segment, those 13 to 24, though, are the most likely to say they feel entertained at 82%. We then see somewhat of a dip among weekly users 25 to 44. Things rebound again among those 45 plus, though, with 75% selecting entertained.
Earlier, we said that 36% of weekly users feel connected when using TikTok. When looking deeper into the data, we found that men are more likely to feel a sense of connection when using the platform than women. At 41% of men weekly users selected that adjective compared to 32% of women. And Alex, I gotta say, this stat kind of surprised me.
I was also a little surprised by that, Selma, but that's why we do research.
And good for the men.
Yeah. Black or African American weekly users are also more likely to say they feel connected on TikTok, again, compared to white and Latino or Hispanic weekly users.
We also found an age story here. Users between 13 and 24 are the most likely to feel connected when using the platform. This makes a lot of sense since their peers are most likely to be on TikTok. Young Americans can also use the platform to follow influencers, celebrities, and athletes, probably helping them forge a deeper and personal connection to these personalities.
Next, we know that TikTok can be used as a powerful tool to spread information and news. This is especially true for Black or African American weekly users, since 50% of them say they feel informed when using the platform. And that's significantly higher than the percent of white or Hispanic or Latino weekly users. Weekly TikTok users between the ages of 25 to 44 are also more likely to say they feel informed at 45%. We didn't ask about this specifically in the survey, but I would guess this is linked to the types of accounts and content 25 to 44-year-olds and possibly African American weekly users are following on TikTok. These groups might be more likely to follow news and information accounts, leading them to feel informed at higher rates. And while they're not as avid users of TikTok as the youngest age segment, 25 to 44-year-olds are still dedicated and important TikTok users, a point we'll illustrate further in slides to come.
We've spent some time detailing who is on TikTok and how they feel about it. Now let's focus a little bit more on how they're using the platform. We asked about a range of things you can do on TikTok, and we found out that the majority of weekly users, 58%, have ever posted a video on TikTok. Alex, have you?
No, no one wants to see that. Have you, Selma?
Absolutely not. You're not going to catch me dancing.
One major finding from this report is that TikTok is a platform for discovering content. If you have music, a podcast, or even an audiobook you want to promote, you need to have a TikTok presence and also a TikTok strategy. 64% of weekly TikTok users are on the platform with the specific intention to find new music. 47% are on there to find new podcasts, and 30% are also trying to find new audiobooks.
Yeah, I really like this stat, Alex, because I always find content creators creating like Spotify playlists and sharing their new favorite music. So that's another channel for me to find music as well. I also see a lot of clips from podcast shows that appear on my For You page. And that's actually how I found out from the UK podcast Shits and Gigs, which technically officially made its top 10 debut in our EPM UK ranker for quarter 3. But I found them a long time ago. So I'm a long-time listener and I love those guys.
Yeah, it's also how I found Amy Poehler's podcast. And it was just such a bright spot in my day that I had to listen to it more. And now it's in my regular listening rotation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only is the overall weekly audience on TikTok there to find a range of new content options, but young audiences are even more likely to be scrolling TikTok to discover new things to listen to or watch. 75% of weekly users, 13 to 24, use TikTok to find new music. 51% use it to find new podcasts, and 34% use it to find new audiobooks. Again, if you're looking to get into the ears and eyes of young audiences, TikTok is where you need to be.
Throughout this webinar, we've really been focusing on how much people enjoy and like the platform. There's no way to downplay it from our data that people love TikTok. I love TikTok. But we also know that users are aware of how much time they spend on the platform, and some have even taken steps to limit or reduce their usage. So again, being the data enthusiasts that we are, we wanted to make sure that this was part of a report. And Alex, before you get to the next few stats, I want to make it clear that I don't fall under any of these categories. I need all my TikTok, but go ahead, tell the people what Americans think.
She's addicted. No, I'm kidding. First, we found that 42% of the US weekly TikTok users think they spend too much time on the platform. Let us know in the comments if you are surprised by how big or small that percentage is. Now, one thing I definitely find interesting is how this changes by age segments. Among weekly users 13 to 24, 54% say they spend too much time on TikTok. That's the highest of all three age groups. This age segment is the most likely to be avid users, but they're also the most likely to be aware that the time they spend on the platform might be excessive. There are also millions of ways to be online or on social media these days, but there's also been an increase in ways to limit or stop social media usage and access to specific apps or platforms. We know some people delete apps, place timers, or try to reduce the amount of times they log into an app. But just how much does this happen with TikTok? Among all weekly users, 34% have ever tried to stop or limit their usage of TikTok. I actually fall in this 34%. I do set a 15-minute timer on my phone for my TikTok usage, but do I snooze that timer most times it goes off? Only my phone knows. Enough about me, though. Not only do we find that just over 1/3 of weekly users try to limit their usage, we found that this is again most common among users 13 to 24, with 41% of that audience who have tried to cut the cord on their TikTok habit in some way. Data also shows that African American or Black weekly users are more likely to have tried to stop or limit their usage compared to white or Hispanic or Latino users at 44% compared to 31% and 29%.
Another popular but unknown area of TikTok is advertisements and promotions of brands or products. And I'm an advertiser's dream and my own worst nightmare because TikTok is a major destination for advertisements and promotions of products or services. I shop because of TikTok all the time. In fact, over 3/4, 78% of weekly users remember seeing an ad or for a product or service on the platform. Just like with audio content, if you're hoping to appeal to new consumers, TikTok is a powerful tool to genuinely connect and promote your products or services to your desired audiences. 83% of weekly users have taken some action after hearing or seeing an ad on TikTok. Many have gathered more information at 48%. 43% have even purchased a product or service. But not only do weekly users remember the ads they hear or see on TikTok, but many users have acted in some way after being exposed to an ad for a product or service.
This is especially true for weekly users between the ages of 25 and 44. Like we mentioned before, this specific age segment is engaged and active on the platform, and they are more likely to have some disposable income to use on products or services their peers are talking about on TikTok. Again, I fall into this group. I won't tell you which side of this group I fall in on, the 24 or the 44, but my wallet hates to see me open the TikTok app.
Me too.
One of our final sections will focus on how people view TikTok. Again, we see the positive sentiments about TikTok continue into this section. Over one half, 61% of weekly users agree that it helps them learn about opinions and perspectives that are different from their own. Not only does the platform excel at bringing people together with similar interests, but it serves as a window into different cultures, perspectives, and ways of thinking. The majority of weekly users also believe that TikTok has content that is different from other social media platforms.
Trust in news and information is extremely hard to come by these days. We found out that 30% of weekly TikTok users agree that they trust the information, content, and news they see or hear on the platform. It's important to note here that we do allow for respondents to indicate that they feel somewhere in the middle, so don't interpret this as 70% disagree with the statement. Like all things, there are some people who don't agree or disagree.
Again, the breadth of our research allows for us to dive deeper into how different audience segments responded to each of these statements. We noticed an interesting theme when we looked at these 4 statements by different ethnicity groups. While Hispanics or Latinos are the most likely to be avid TikTok users, those who are on the platform weekly are somewhat more critical of it as well, especially compared to white and Black or African American audiences. Hispanics are less likely to say that TikTok helps them learn about different opinions and perspectives. They're less likely to say that it has content they can't find elsewhere. And they're also less likely to say that they trust the news and information they see on TikTok. This group is also more likely to say that TikTok sometimes makes them feel badly about themselves.
And we couldn't conduct this research without asking about a TikTok ban, something that was everywhere in the news about a year ago. As you might expect, weekly users do not want to see TikTok be banned, me included. We wanted to take things a little bit further and ask about how important it is for users that TikTok is owned by an American company, since that is also a big part of the conversation around TikTok. Among current weekly users, we don't see this as something they find very important. A slightly higher percentage actually says that it's not important to them at all. But again, we chose to look at things a bit deeper and investigated how weekly users with varying political orientations answered this question. Interestingly, this is an issue that varies widely by different political groups. Republican weekly users are significantly more likely to say that it's important to them than Democratic or independent weekly users.
Our final talking point is going to focus a bit more on trust. We wanted to understand not just how much users trust what they see or hear on TikTok, but how that compares to other types of media. Overall, weekly users say they trust what they see on TikTok primarily the same as what they see or hear on other media platforms. But again, differences exist by audience segments. Men are more likely than women to say they trust information on TikTok more than other media platforms. And young weekly users are also the most likely to trust TikTok content compared to other media platforms, with 29% selecting more.
I know I'm biased, but I think we reviewed a ton of interesting data and insights over the past hour. There is so much to absorb and analyze, but I want to leave you with the key takeaways we reviewed at the outset of this presentation.
Again, first and foremost, and we cannot downplay this at all in our data, perceptions of TikTok are very positive. The overwhelming majority of weekly TikTok users say they feel entertained when using the app. We also found that people feel like it brings them together and acts as a big sense of escapism for them and helps them avoid the stress of everyday life.
We also found that TikTok is an important platform for audio content discovery. Many weekly users are on TikTok to find new music, podcasts, and audiobooks. It's clear from our research that if you're trying to engage with new audiences, a TikTok presence and strategy is necessary. While weekly users are enthusiastic about TikTok, there's a sizable percentage who are concerned with how much time they spend using the platform, especially users who are between the ages of 13 and 24, one of TikTok's most active audiences.
Finally, TikTok is a powerful megaphone for promoting products or services, since the vast majority of weekly users recall seeing or hearing advertisements on the platform. Over 3/4 of weekly users remember ever seeing or hearing an advertisement for a product or service while scrolling through the app.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining today. The full report will be available shortly on our website and on Edison Research. I'm going to be going back to my TikTok break since this went pretty fast. So enjoy your scrolling.
She still has time. Thanks everyone for joining. Hope you have a great day.
Bye.